About a week ago, I had the opportunity to work with Theater on the Run and do an interview for their latest project, which is the Jane Franklin dance show called Border. The show is about individuals describe borders and boundaries experienced through career, racial, gender, and ethnic divides. And so I was able to share my thoughts about the African American experience, and I was able to get a hold of that recording so that I can share with the Positive Filter listeners. They're doing a show where they're going to take these interviews and mix them in with movement and dance, which I'm excited to see how that plays out. The show will be taking place um, April 13th through the 28th at Theater of the Run, which is at 3700 South 4 Mile Run in Arlington. So I was able to take that recording. I'll put the description of the show in the show notes. And I thought it would be a great show, great recording to share with the Positive Filter listeners in anticipation for the show. And maybe if you don't go see the show, you'll hear some of my voice in that show, which I'm really excited about. So enjoy this snippet about race and my thoughts on race, and I hope you enjoy.
Welcome to Positive Filter with your host, Philip Wilkerson, a podcast that focuses on friends, family, health, and career with a little self-help around the way. Please join me in this journey for self-improvement, and I hope that what I have to share will make you a better person, thus making the world a better place.
All right. So thanks for taking time out. I know you've got a busy life going on right now.
Well, it's like a funny busy. It's like it's busy as in I'm not going out and doing anything, but my life's consumed right now with the little one and expecting little one. So it's not crazy busy out. It's like busy in the house kind
of. Right. Okay, so I think Carrie told you a little bit about this project. We're kind of looking for some people who maybe have come up against some, like little walls, little barriers in their life just because of their situations, choices, whatever. So she thought it would be interesting for me to talk with you.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm not going to say I'm impoverished, but, I, obviously being a black male, I would say just naturally has, I wouldn't say created it's a presence in my life. It's who I am. It's my identity. And while I don't think I've faced many examples of blatant racism, I have a few. Just my existence in this country and my experience in this country. It's something that eventually I've been more and more aware of. And then I would say, there's times where coming into adolescence and my identity racially has, not say created conflict or issues. That was kind of a main sparking point, my adolescence, my teenage years. And I would say now, as a father to someone that's biracial, it's definitely more of a present focus thought, because now I believe my race not only affects me, it affects my children. So that has more of an impact on my thoughts and my feelings toward, racism and things like that.
Do you feel like there are things the kids have to, or you face as parents with, like schools, or I know your youngest though is just 2.
He's turning 3. No, I mean, I was just saying, I was thinking more in my experience. I talked on another podcast about this, and my main thought is that the perception that you have of yourself, right? Um, and then the perception that society has of you. Ideally, you want it to be like aligned with each other, right? But sometimes it comes in conflict, right? So, for example, I'm black, I'm strong, I'm smart, I'm proud of myself, right? And sometimes, for me, that's who my identity is, right? But then we have society's viewpoint on your identity is that typically if you're black, you're not smart ass, or um, you're wild. There's the negative stereotypes, right? And that's things that come in conflict. So my job, what I'm seeing now, is that I want to prepare my son to have a firm sense of self before society does. Meaning, I didn't realize or think that being black was a thing, or you play with white kids, you play with black kids, and when you're children, you don't really think of that things until something happens, right? Until a girl says you're different, or I don't play with people like you, kind of things like that, right? And I was always thinking about that. I was like, I want to prepare my son for the world, not and I'm kind of like in the back of my mind ready for that one day where he realizes that maybe he is different. And so I think that one of the things I try to work on even with him is, I just kind of like, I bring it up like daddy's black, mommy's white, like I don't want him to, like, I don't know, have outside influences be the ones that educate him on race rather than me.
Yeah, it's really interesting when kids are small before they actually learn about those differences to watch kids be together. It really is amazing, and then all the other stuff starts to come in. It's
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can say that with anything, right? Like not just race, but like, like gender and gender roles and stuff, like, you know, if you see if a little boy is wearing a dress, right? And he's happy, and his parents accept it, that's good until, a kid bullies him, right? And the innocence of kids, and how you're right, like, at the root of it, kids of different races play with each other and don't think nothing of it. But then there's going to be a time where, I have to say, they had to grow up, but then the outside influences come in, right? And the innocence of kids is lost, right? And for me, and what I've seen or what I've experienced just being on my side as a black male, is that I'm raising, two little. I'm calling. I mean, I'm already identifying that my children are going to be considered people of color, so they're going to probably face more obstacles. They're not going to, pass as white, and so, I just their innocence. Like I'm holding on to it, but I'm also preparing them for like that time where that loss of innocence happens, and that's something that like I worry about. Not like have anxiety about it, but something I think about and I'm worried about.
I definitely can understand that concern. I mean, you worry about kids the way it is, almost every aspect, and then this is an extra. I think in a way, an extra layer, definitely, to just it just impacts everything. So
Right.
yeah. And did you grow up in this area?
I'm a military brat, so I grew up a little bit all over the place. But most times, my dad was stationed in the D.C. area. We'd move away and come back for the Pentagon, or move away and come back for Fort Belvoir. And fortunately for my upbringing, most of my dad's stations were here. And growing up in this area, it's very diverse and very unique. But one particular place that we were stationed, Fort Rucker, Alabama, was quite different. And was probably one of my main exposures to, you know, uh, that like okay, I would say when you're a military kid, you play with kids from all over the world, and it's just like, I don't know, the little military base is like a little oasis, like a little community of all kinds of different people, because that's the military. Um, but you step off base and it's different, right? So, being in Northern Virginia, if you like stepped off of Fort Belvoir, you're still in diverse DC, right? So it's not that big a deal. But when we lived in Alabama, if you stepped off base in Fort Rucker, Alabama, you were in the deep South, and that's when I think that was one of the times in my life where I think race was very, very blatantly obvious to me, or differences or racism. Was Fort Rucker, Alabama.
Yeah, I haven't ever really spent any time in Alabama, but I have heard that it is still very much a part of Alabama.
Yeah, I mean certain parts, but yeah, it wasn't the big city. It wasn't Mobile or anything. It was, yeah, and so I would say I claim DC area, and I'm glad to, because it makes me happy that this area is very, very diverse and very, I don't know, just it's maybe not the reflection of the whole United States, but it's a very good, I would say, a good place to raise people of color and different, and just also diversity, and just going to high school, you go to school, all the schools, the different nations. This area is very, very good area, but it's not I don't think it's reflective of the whole United States, and
That's very true. That's very true. I grew up in rural Colorado, and yeah, I mean, it's even today, and it's like Trump, Trump country there still.
right, it is.
And yeah, and I mean, definitely people I know that or I think of are really nice, good people are still, it's still definitely a part of that landscape too. So,
right. For sure.
Sure. So, what are your are your plans here to be able to stay in the area?
I mean, yeah, my wife's from here. My parents are grounded here. My 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 what's it called? My wife's what's it called? What am I about to say? My wife's in-laws are from here, so it's like this is just a good place to live. This is a good place to be.
Yeah, it's good. It's good to be around family and have all that support. Definitely. So, is there anything else that you would like to talk about? I mean, what do you do now? I know you do your podcasts.
Yeah, I mean, I do one called Positive Philter, and it's a podcast. It's and it's still growing. But it's a hobby. Like I said, it's a hobby. When I have the time to do it, but like I had so many hobbies. Like I used to be a power lifter. When I say used to, interested to get back into it, but when time permits for training. And then, I'm a member of African American, or not African American, but a historically Black fraternity called Alpha Phi Alpha, and that's something that keeps me grounded in my race and things like that, and connected to other strong Black males such as myself. But those are some of my hobbies: powerlifting, my fraternity. This podcast. But as things get busy, I haven't been able to divert attention to any of them right now. But when life gets a little less hectic, I can parcel myself out to those appropriately. Because all those little aspects, when I was lifting, it gave me a little bit of joy. Being around other people gave me joy, and doing this podcast, gives me a little bit of joy. But obviously, you can't give yourself to everything, you know?
Right, right. Yes, exactly. But the creative projects are definitely
Yeah,
are.
they're fun. They're fun. And like, I was telling someone, with um I was telling someone with that with a laptop or computer you can do just about anything. If that makes sense, you know?
Yes, yes, yeah. It is. There's so many things anymore. So, and so many things that used to be really, really hard are now kind of a lot more easy to get into, and some of the video editing and all of that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
There's a lot of little tricks that you can use and get into. So exactly. Okay. All right. Well, thanks so much for talking to me a little bit about bringing a family um, into this, a biracial family. It's
I mean, I hope there's anything. I mean, is there any question, particularly things that can be useful for your project, or any particular? I know I kind of ramble, but is there any like real, any like question that you have?
Well, I usually just kind of let people talk because I feel like they say things that I never would have thought to ask.
Oh, okay. All right.
That's part of it. But I also, like just I think you discussed that a little bit. I mean, pretty well about just kind of those blocks that you find, and like even even you're finding that sort of fear and that block about your family even before these kids are of the age, and you already know that is going to be difficult
Mm. I
for
mean,
them.
it's predictive. I had a talk with my father, and he probably had some different thoughts, and obviously it was probably more extreme for his father and his father before. Like his father probably worried about him getting lynched or something, because that was his exposure,
Right.
right? And then my dad's exposure was like, me getting jobs and stuff because, or going to college because during his time, that's what he saw around me. So maybe the things I'm worried about are things that I'm seeing right now that maybe not necessarily like they're predictive. Like they might not necessarily be the generation's issues that my son has to grow up with, and I think that's all parents, right? But I think in regards to race, I have this strong hope that things will get better, and that things will be different, and obviously things are different from my parents' generation to my generation, and obviously from my generation to my sons, they'll be different. But it is a strange notion where you you have like a little. It's not like yeah, you have a fear, but it's like it doesn't really affect you or feel like that big a deal, when it happens to you. I mean, it could be earth shattering or whatever if it's bad, but it doesn't seem like that scary. But then when it happens to someone under your care, it's a little bit like I really didn't care, like if when someone called me, the N word, right? Um, uh, for me, I kind of the first couple times shocked me, and this is Alabama. And then when I heard it in college, I was like, just kind of like, whatever. Let's, we can probably fight about it or something like that. I was mad like anyone else, but then I just went about my day, right? And I still thought about it, and it was all right. But it's like I feel like I would be 10 times more affected once that happens to my son first, for his first time,
Hmm.
and you know, um, or my son gets harassed or something like that. Like I feel like it's going to be affects me more than it happens to me. Like, when it's you have control over it. You can control your bubble, you control your emotions over it. But when it happens to someone else, like you don't, you can't protect them forever. And so that's my notion of race. Like obviously I really believe that this world is getting better, and things are gonna get better. But um, no, it is what it is.
Yeah, 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 and I think we definitely have a ways to go. I mean, I think you're right. This part of the country, it's definitely a little bit better, definitely better here, but other parts, still have a way to go, I think, too. So, okay. Well, thanks so much. I know you have a busy life, and thanks so much for taking the time out. And what I usually do with people who I interview, after I get this file, I'll just send a copy of it to you too, if you'd like to have it.
Okay, that'd be great. Maybe
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I might. If you send this copy to me, maybe I'll use it for my. I'll just use it for my podcast.
Sure.
But give me your details, and what I will do is, actually, I will use this for my podcast. And just say it's a frank conversation I thought I would share with you. But give me the details about your project, and so when I share it, when I share this project, when I share this podcast or share this episode for the podcast, I can make sure I put what your information is in the show notes so that people can be familiar with it.
Oh, great. That would be great. Thanks. That's so nice of you. And we'll definitely be inviting you to come to the show as well when we.
Like I say, you're not editing this out. What's the name? For if this was my podcast for the listeners, what's the name of your show and some details about it?
Well, it's called Border. And it will be performed at Theater on the Run in Arlington. It's a small black box theater at 3700 South 4 Mile Run Drive. And we'll have 3 weekends of shows in April. So hopefully you'll be able to make it to one of them.
No, it depends on little man when he gets here.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, or you and Maggie could alternate. One of you could come one.
Yeah, that's pretty dope. Thank you so much. This is really interesting. And honestly, you helped me out because I learned about something new with Zencastr today. So I always appreciate collaboration and always open to, like I say, expressing creativity. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And we'll be in touch.
All right.
Thanks. Have a good evening.
All right, you too.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to Positive Philter, a podcast that focuses on family, friends, career, with a little self-help along the way. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with your family and friends, and like the Facebook page, Spreading Positivity of Movement. Thanks for listening.